Good morning. You guys remind me of my students. Nobody wants to sit in the front row. But welcome to GCEC 2012. We're thrilled to officially kick off the program here this morning. My name is Jeff Reed. I'm the director of the Georgetown Entrepreneurship Initiative. And on behalf of Georgetown University, I'd love to welcome you all to our campus and here to the McDonough School of Business. We love entrepreneurship. We love learning from all of you, and we're thrilled to have you here. Over the next 2 days, we hope you'll enjoy the program we've put together and hope you learn a lot from each other. And I hope you leave and go home and do amazing things, right? Because that's what we do. In entrepreneurship education, it's a lot of fun because we get to create the future leaders of the world. What we do is actually kind of important. Do you agree? Yeah. All right. And I know that entrepreneurship education is an exciting field to be in, and it's growing, and this audience represents some of the leading thinkers in our field. But what it also represents is the fact that there's so many different ways that entrepreneurship education happens. Every university has a different set of factors, and every program has things that they do that are special for them. Everyone in here is an expert, but no one in here knows all the answers. And so that's why we come together for GCEC. The first time I attended one of these conferences, I was just brand new in the field. This was 1999, and we used to call ourselves the National Consortium of Entrepreneurship Centers. And Southern Cal hosted the event. And I believe there were somewhere around 30 of us in the room. Was anybody here? Some folks that were here today were there that day. Yeah, there were a lot fewer of us there. And now we're going to have over 250. So the field has changed over the last 13 years, and the biggest characteristic is that it continues to grow. So we're thrilled that you're here. I think we have more international attendees than ever before, and we're learning a lot from those of you who do come from other countries. And so it's an exciting time. So we're thrilled to have everyone here. A few kind of points about the agenda. One thing is we're gonna stay on time, right? So we're gonna be strict on this stuff. Notwithstanding the fact that I started a couple of minutes late. You notice that we've built in some pretty big break times. 30 minutes here, 45 minutes there, because a lot of the magic happens outside the normal program. We want you to enjoy the conference, between the lines. So during the breaks, talk to folks. You're going to have a great time with that. During lunch and breakfast, we don't have speakers, so that's another chance for you to get to know each other and hang out. The goal, I know from my experience coming to this conference over the years, is you meet amazing people that you then find as resources throughout the rest of the year. So hopefully we'll keep the GCEC spirit alive after Saturday. A couple of things that you can do to help with the program. You should have gotten an email the last day, I guess yesterday, and maybe one a few days ago as well, that talked about the ways you can impact the agenda. So I'd love for you to vote for which workshop you want to see repeated on Saturday. This doesn't necessarily have to be the best one that you've attended, but it's the one that maybe you didn't get a chance to go to. And maybe you already know which one you think should be repeated on Saturday. So you have a chance to vote. We've emailed you a link. We'll be tweeting it, and hopefully you'll get a chance to, you can type it in to your smartphone, or you can click on one of the links that we send you. And vote for the workshops that you would most like to see repeated on Saturday afternoon. On Saturday at lunch, we'll announce which ones of those have been selected. So you'll get a chance to go to the workshops you really want to go to. In all of our breakout sessions, we strongly encourage the person whose name or names are on that to not stand and talk the whole time. We've asked all of our moderators to actually moderate. And they have expertise. That's why they're there as the leader of the session, but there's expertise amongst the audience as well. So we encourage everyone to promote conversations in those sessions and not just presentations. Let's see, we're going to announce some awards later tonight at the banquet. It's going to be a lot of fun. And the schools that win awards are going to be asked to present something tomorrow and explain why they won an award. So here in the auditorium, you can see in the program, there's a whole track around excellence and best practices. And so we're going to have the schools, the award winners, sign up And we'll have a schedule that we'll post so you'll know who's going to be in here as the day goes on. And if there's not another session that draws your attention, maybe you can wander in here and listen to what they have to say. They may not have a long formal presentation. They may not expect to win. But it'll at least be a Q&A, and you can learn from some of the organizations and centers that GCEC has chosen to recognize for their excellence. So those are my intro comments. You guys excited and ready to go? All right, well, let's get into the program. Our first keynote presentation is all about what's next in entrepreneurship education. And I am thrilled and happy to introduce one of our colleagues. The first time I met Heidi, I literally had in my pocket a copy of her research paper that I had been reading on the train going to this conference. Did not know I was going to meet her. I said, wait, you're Heidi Neck? I said, you're this Heidi Neck? And I don't think she said she was more impressed or happy, or I don't know. I guess it makes you really happy when people read the stuff you do.
It's just never happened.
Well, so from then on, I've followed and respected her work, and we're thrilled to have her here today. So the Jeffrey Timmons Professor of Entrepreneurial Studies from Babson College, Heidi Neck.
I'm going to get from behind the podium in a second because it reminds me of the recent presidential debate, and I'd rather not relive that. How are you? Okay, I'm not going to say anything right now. We need sound. So, Babson did not create that. It was made by an alumni of our college, and you can find that video on YouTube if you just search Grasshopper Entrepreneurship, and it'll be the first thing that pops up. You know, entrepreneurship makes us happy. Entrepreneurship says in this sea of problems, there's actually some solutions that can be generated and identified and created by entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship gives us this freedom to experiment. Entrepreneurship gives us this freedom to fail. And entrepreneurship also allows us to celebrate failure. Entrepreneurship makes us happy. The problem is I can't necessarily, and I'm only speaking for myself, I can't necessarily say that entrepreneurship education makes me happy. Entrepreneurship, yes. entrepreneurship education, maybe not. So the question is, what is next for entrepreneurship? And perhaps that's not the most important question we need to answer as a group. And if you're expecting to come here this morning to learn from me, God forbid, what's next in entrepreneurship education, I wish I knew. But it's conferences like this where we come together and we try to figure this out. And the beauty about a group like this is that we are willing to experiment. We do always hold really close to our hearts that entrepreneurship does make us happy. So why doesn't entrepreneurship education make us as happy as the practice of entrepreneurship does? So in my opinion, the real question then is, what is entrepreneurship education? What is entrepreneurship education? And I think over the years, I think we've perpetuated this myth about what entrepreneurship education is. And I don't want us, the field of entrepreneurship, the center directors in entrepreneurship, those that are representing higher education for entrepreneurship, to take the blame. Because this myth has been perpetuated for decades. For decades. It's about the entrepreneur who's a Superman, who somehow sits in a garage and tinkers and comes up with the next big idea, and the person who's born and not made. And then they grow up to go into that garage that should come up next. And then after they create that wonderful, wonderful idea, all of a sudden, overnight, they see wealth. They become famous. Not very good stock prices, but famous nonetheless. They have created markets and revolutionized how we do things. They are recognizable throughout the world, these great entrepreneurs are. And they have changed our lives in ways that we could not have imagined. May he rest in peace. And don't get me wrong, I don't have anything against Oprah, Bill, Steve, and Mark. I mean, I feel like I've read so much about them that I have the ability to call them by their first name. But these iconic entrepreneurs don't represent the reality of entrepreneurship today. 12.3% represents the reality of entrepreneurship today. Does anyone know what 12.3% is? We'll say that again? No, but thank you for playing. Almost. Anybody else? 12.3%. Total entrepreneurial participation. So, according to the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, in the United States only, and I apologize to our international participants, those between the ages of 18 and 64 years old that are either engaged in the process of starting a business or actually have a business and are operating that business, that's less than 3 years old. 12.3% of the United States population, and that equates to about 22 million people. That's the reality of entrepreneurship, and we tend to talk about 4, 5, maybe 10 of them. But even this isn't the true reality of entrepreneurship, in my opinion, not for us. Not if we're really trying to define what entrepreneurship education is. I'm actually becoming much more concerned about the other 88%. At Babson, we're taking a new approach, and we're looking at entrepreneurship of all kinds. And we truly believe that entrepreneurship, more than ever, we need entrepreneurs of all kinds who think and act entrepreneurially, who can transform opportunity into reality and generate economic and social value everywhere. Now, sometimes when I present this, I get people saying, especially when we're in pure entrepreneurship audiences, Heidi, isn't Babson College watering down this concept of entrepreneurship? And I'm a PhD. I sit in an entrepreneurship division. I'm forced to do the entrepreneurship research, to publish in the entrepreneurship journals. But I don't care if I'm watering down my own discipline. Because if I, as an entrepreneurship educator, can actually help entrepreneurs of all kinds, that 88% to think and act more entrepreneurially in organizations of all kinds, regardless of size, shape, and orientation, then I am doing my job, and I feel like I am making an impact. There will always be a field of entrepreneurship as a discipline that the PhDs and the academics have to adhere to, and that's beautiful. But we as educators, which is another part of our job, we have to really think broader than that. And that's why we're focusing on entrepreneurs of all kinds. Can we graduate every single student to think and act entrepreneurially? What a world that would be. And it doesn't mean they have to start a new business. So before we can actually talk about what's next for entrepreneurship education, we kind of have to figure out where we are now. And a few years ago, a colleague of mine and I, or last year it got published, but we'd been working on it for a couple of years, wrote a paper that was published in the Journal of Small Business Management talking about the known worlds that we teach in today, and then where we think the field of entrepreneurship education should be going. And Patty and I were asked to present something at USASB about this, and we made some videos for USASB, and I hadn't pulled up those videos in a while because Patty and I agreed that this would never make it to YouTube. But when Jeff asked me to speak, I said, Jeff, I have a few things. I need your advice. I can do A, B, or C. He goes, go with A, Heidi. And I said, okay, I'll go with A. So I'm going to make a fool of myself, and Patty's not here. She doesn't know, but she's going to be making a fool of herself too. But we all kind of have to laugh at ourselves when we're talking about entrepreneurship education in order to figure out where we're going to go next. And in this paper, we introduced a few different worlds of entrepreneurship, worlds that we're currently teaching in. This isn't a historic kind of look back of where we've been. This is really how we're teaching today. So the first world I'd like to introduce you to is the entrepreneur world. And rather than me tell you what this world is, let's show the video. I apologize in advance. We're reporting live from the world of heroes, myths, and personality profiling. I'm here with Patty. Hello, Patty.
Hello, Heidi.
Patty, tell me a little bit about your life in this world.
Well, I'm an extrovert salesperson. Love adventure sports like parachuting out of airplanes.
That's interesting.
Oh, and I'm a leader, persevering, charismatic, love to learn, confident, and in control of my own destiny.
Well, Patty, that sounds like you're an entrepreneur.
I was born this way.
I'm just talking to the camera for a second. That was not me in that video. That was not me. Now, you know, the entrepreneur world is still taught today. You pick up a lot of the entrepreneurship textbooks, and immediately you see that there are traits of entrepreneurs. And it's kind of fun to really think about that these entrepreneurs are some magical beings, and students really like it. And we can give them some tests to say, hey, what's your tolerance of ambiguity? What's your locus of control? And they kind of like that. It kind of helps them define themselves. But for over 40 years now, we've been trying to do research identifying if entrepreneurs are different from the population in terms of personality traits and how they're born. And really, we found nothing. Yet we continue to think of them as some magical human beings. And I think when you do look at Bill and Mark and Oprah and Steve, you do think they are magical in some way, and perhaps those four are. But if we're trying to teach to a broader population, maybe to that 82% or 88%, then using personality traits still does more harm than good. Interesting, yes. Harmful also, yes. And so that's not the bulk of where our teaching is today. It's still present. It doesn't take up a whole class or anything like that. But the bulk of our teaching is in the second world I'd like to introduce you to, and that's the process world. So here's a second video.
Scream out loud, and if I were Hello again. We're now reporting from the world of planning and prediction. I'm sure all of you remember Patty, a profiled and born entrepreneur. Patty, it's good to see you, and it's been a while, but you don't seem your energetic self. What have you been up to recently?
Well, being the entrepreneur that I was born to be, I identified a great opportunity. My idea was to make a new iPhone app.
An app for what?
Well, the app is a wellness app. It keeps track of miles walked in a day, calories burned through the normal daily activities, and offers suggestions for burning more calories based on an individual's lifestyle.
Sounds like a good idea.
That's what I thought. That's what I still think. I wrote a 45-page multicolored business plan. It was printed on glossy, expensive paper. I had a marketing plan, 5 years of financials that showed 125% growth each year, with break-even happening in the 4th month of the first year.
Wow, sounds attractive on paper.
I sent the plan to 53 venture capitalists and no one responded.
Patty, do you know any venture capitalists?
No.
Patty, do you know anyone who knows a venture capitalist?
No.
Patty, do you know anything about iPhone application development?
No.
So it's actually been great to see some movements away from the business plan in our industry, so to speak. Babson recently canceled its business plan competition in place of an action-based competition, and some other schools have done the same. The business plan has traditionally been the gold standard in entrepreneurship pedagogy, and I've always questioned why. And it took me a while to figure it out, but it's because we can grade them. And when you really think about entrepreneurship education, if we really wanted to educate the students the way we know we should educate the students, there becomes this huge question mark. How do we grade them? How do we grade them? So between the entrepreneurship world, entrepreneur world, the world of kind of personality stereotyping, and the process world, that of planning and prediction, Patty and I started to think about, really what's next in entrepreneurship education. And last year, you had Sarah Sarasvathy come and address this group, and I'm sure some of you were there. If we take the prediction and planning world, and we call that causation in Sarah's terms, meaning how can we use historical data in order to predict the future? How can we do all of the analysis before we actually take action? This is our predominant form of teaching in business schools today. It's also the predominant form of thinking in corporations today. But Sarah's, thankfully, and I think she's made the largest contribution to our field, introduces to the theory of effectuation. It's really a theory of action. It's starting off with what you have rather than what you need. Business planning comes later. Action comes first. A constant cycle of experimentation and testing. But see, these two things are pitted against one another as the field unfolds. Causation versus effectuation. Causation bad, effectuation good. But we can't think that way because we're always going to need causation. Our ability to analyze data, to think critically, to test hypotheses. But we cannot ignore the fundamental importance of effectuation. Act first. Under effectuation, it's about do, then learn. Under causation, it's about learn, then do. And this tension has been built. But Babson said, we don't need this tension. We need both. And we've done causation very well, but now we're going to move to effectuation. And we've created our entire curriculum around an umbrella term that we've trademarked called entrepreneurial thought and action. And every single part of our curriculum ties to causation and effectuation. We tend to use prediction and creation as our terminology, but this is what it's based on, much of Sarah Sarasvathy's work. And with that, we can say that entrepreneurship can be taught, and it's taught as a method and not a process. It is a method and not a process, a method that is learnable, that is teachable, because effectuation is based on entrepreneurial thinking. Effectuation was developed by looking at serial entrepreneurs and understanding how they think. Traits, no research has supported, as I said, that there are certain traits that separate entrepreneurs from others. When researchers started to say that, they said, well, let's look at behaviors. And that's been very idiosyncratic depending on the study, that there's some behaviors that separate entrepreneurs from others. But there is evidence, finally, that there are patterns around how entrepreneurs think. And the good thing about thinking is it can be taught, it can be changed, and it can be altered. And I do think that's where the future of entrepreneurship education lies, at least for me, if my goal is focusing not only on the 12.3%, but also the other 88%. So this brings us to what is entrepreneurship as a method, and I won't go into great detail. It's in the paper, but really it's a way of thinking and acting using a portfolio of techniques to create. And it goes beyond simply understanding. It goes beyond knowing. It goes beyond talking. It demands requiring, it demands using, applying, and acting. And the method requires practice. And I know some of you are thinking, well, Heidi, what's the difference between a method and a process? Perhaps for some of you it's a semantics argument. For me, it's a little bit more important than that. Because a process indicates that we have known inputs and outputs. For years, we've taught entrepreneurship as this process of, hey, student, go out, identify an opportunity. Not sure how you're going to do it, but come back to class with that opportunity. And then we want you to identify your resource requirements to act on that opportunity. Write the plan, go out, get the resources, execute, and harvest. Then go to Bermuda and have fun in your life. Okay? And that, what the process movement did for us was gave us at least a focus. It was more than just that great man theory. It gave us a focus. And I think we've learned a ton from that process. But the thing is that process tends to teach students, if you do this, you will get this. You put all the components in and you will get this beautiful car out. And we just can't do that anymore. We can't assess to that. We can't even prove it. So, but if we think about entrepreneurship as a method, it's simply a body of skills. It's a toolkit. It's creative, it's experimental, it's iterative. It requires students to actually act and not simply plan. And it requires a lot of practice. So how can we generate a curriculum? How can we generate a curriculum where students actually practice entrepreneurship? And that's why this group is so incredibly important. Many of you, if not all of you, are directors of entrepreneurship centers. Some of you are academics, some of you are practitioners. For years, entrepreneurship was simply housed in the division of entrepreneurship or a division of strategy where the focus was, let's develop courses. Not enough anymore. Not enough. Co-curricular program is becoming more important than ever to entrepreneurship education. You, if you're representing a center, it's your responsibility now. How can you help students practice entrepreneurship education? Because we, the ones teaching in the actual classroom, are so limited by what we can actually do in that classroom given a particular period of time. But how can the faculty and the center directors all come together to create a cohesive educational experience for our students today, where when they're outside the classroom, which is like 154 hours of a week, how are they practicing entrepreneurship? And that, I believe, is the future of entrepreneurship. So to me, entrepreneurship education is a space broadly defined, and I use space for a reason, where students practice creating, finding, and exploiting opportunities of all kinds that generate both economic and social value. Students act, students then learn, and then students build on what they're learning. And it is in that order. Students act, students learn, and then students build on what they learn. It's that simple, isn't it? But it is our responsibility as educators of all kinds, and I think anyone who has a job at an institute of higher education is an educator. We all have the responsibility to educate the next generation of entrepreneurs. Can we go bigger? Can we be bolder? Can we try some experiments? Can we practice what we preach? And I don't have all the answers. And Babson certainly doesn't have all the answers either. But it gives us something to think about and something to talk about. So I can't end a presentation without some shameless plugs. So if you have any interest in understanding what Babson is doing with related to entrepreneurial thought and action, kind of combining these two ways of thinking, causation and effectuation, in order to help students act, then learn, then build, I have to promote one of my programs, which is the Price Babson Symposium for Entrepreneurship Educators, where we bring in faculty from all around the world and kind of show them the Babson and experience the Babson methodologies towards entrepreneurship education. We have two programs, one in January and one in May. Unfortunately, the January program is already booked up, but we are taking registrations for the May program. The second is more urgent and immediate, is that we're hosting the MBA roundtable this year at Babson, and that's coming up from November 1st and 2nd, and a host of faculty are coming to the Babson campus. And if you want more information about that, you go to the MBA roundtable. How much time do I have left? Can I have 2 minutes? Okay, I'm going to end with one final video because I think it celebrates who we are. And I showed this at USASB one year, and I apologize if those of you were in the audience that this is a repeat. But I think it really celebrates who we are and what we do. Thank you for your time.